And welcome back to the Dean Obeidallah Show. Right now, very happy to have on Erica Payne, the founder and president of Patriotic Millionaires, the co-author with Morris Pearl of Tax the Rich, How Lies, Loopholes, and Lobbyists Made the Rich Even Richer, which we're living through now. Erica, nice to see you, my friend. Thanks for being on.
Happy to be here.
So tell us, you're the founder of this group. A lot of people know Patriotic Millionaires. Tell us the origin story. What made you say, I got to do something here?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was 2010. It was during the lame duck session of Congress, and it became clear that President Obama, this hopey changey Democratic, historic president, was going to extend Bush tax cuts for incomes over $1 million a year. And it just pissed me off. I didn't think it was, I thought it was politically stupid and policy wise unnecessary. And so I called a couple of millionaires I know. They agreed with me. And then we wrote this letter that essentially said, for the good of the country, raise my taxes. And I called the group this, what I want to just say, our members hate the name. But I named them the Patriotic Millionaires very intentionally, Dean, because I'm really sick of the conservative story about taxes. I mean, they have this idea, it's my money, I made it all by myself. Now you're coming in and stealing it and giving it to undeserving poor people. They totally disavow the idea that they've just sucked money out of working people for the last multiple decades. And so, in the opinion of this group, we've got to do a major reinvestment. And so anyway, so the group started in 2010, and it just kind of this unique idea of millionaires who wanted to pay higher taxes captured the public imagination. And so we've been growing since then.
I remember that. I remember when early on, I don't know, 2010, but I remember reading about the organization. I'm like, this is smart. This is great. I am patriotic. I'm just a million short, or I could join your group. So hopefully that'll be in the future. I can join the Patriotic Millionaires. Maybe not
Well, and
full.
Dean, but let me tell you something about the group. So these are folks who have incomes over $1 million or assets of more than $5 million. And
Wow.
the group focuses exclusively on taxing people at that level.
Sure.
So if you make 200,000, 300,000, we actually talk about this in the book. The first chapter of our book is What is Rich? Because we figure if a bunch of millionaires
Sure.
are going to say you should tax the rich, let's define who rich is. And so we start rich pretty high up on the income and asset scale because we have a really big problem mostly at the upper end. And so a lot, some politicians will say, let's tax people more at 250 or 350 or 400. And we just absolutely not. Our focus is on the very upper end of the income scale and of the wealth scale.
So how was it that the very wealthy that you've been speaking of don't pay what your organization and most of us don't view as their fair share of taxes?
There are 700,000 different ways.
Wow.
Basically, none of them make economic sense. We outline all of them in the book, Tax the Rich. How lies, loopholes, and lobbyists make the rich even richer. And it's basically that lies, loopholes, and lobbyists is how they do it. But if you're looking for a quick, short explanation, which some people are, if you go to taxtherich.com, we've created a 15-minute little presentation that basically talks you through all of the ways the tax code is rigged against working people and in favor of the rich. Here are a few examples, Dean.
Hmm.
So, if you are a billionaire and you own 10 yachts, 8 racehorses, 4 Picasso paintings, and a room full of gold coins, you will pay less in property tax than your basic American who owns a small home. Okay, so just starting there, most Americans pay taxes on their property. Most wealthy people don't pay taxes on their
Hmm.
property. Most wealthy people don't have any income. No, that's a strange sentence to say, but basically, our Constitution says you can tax incomes. Our billionaires don't have income. So they buy, borrow, and die. They borrow money against their assets, so they never have any actual income. So there's nothing there to tax.
Wow.
We also
That's
have a
ingenious, huh?
situation where capital gains,
Hmm.
that's when you make money off of your money, is taxed at a lower rate than working income. So if I'm a working person and I make $100,000 a year, working 40 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, I will pay taxes on that 100,000. If I make that on capital gains, meaning I click a button on an E-Trade account and I sell some stocks and make a gain of 100,000, I'll pay no taxes on that gain. So basically, every dollar a rich person makes is more valuable than every dollar a working person makes. And every dollar that an inheritor makes is worth even more than the money of the capital gains or the labor income. So we have really created a system, Dean, purely through our tax system that guarantees this country is going to become more unequal more quickly over time. The actual structure of the tax code is where the rigging begins by saying that all of these kinds of money are more valuable than these kinds of money. And so over time, it just directs all of the output of the nation up to a smaller and smaller group of surprisingly very well politically connected people.
Certainly. So, just for example, not to go too deep into this, but if someone has a painting worth $10 million, instead of having income, they can get a loan against that painting, and then it ends up not,
1000%.
and
Yeah,
then it doesn't count as income because they repay the loan to some entity that they've created that owns the actual painting. Is that what happens?
that's correct. And what basically happens is what'll be more likely to happen is like in their brokerage account, they'll just like have a negative balance on their cash piece, but they never actually pay for it and it doesn't count as income. So it's all kinds of stuff. Then you've got, trust and estates law, which is just nothing but riddled with loopholes. You have these I mean, the whole thing's a mess. Okay. And so,
Right.
Dean, we're in a situation now where we've got 70% of the American people think the economy is rigged against working people. And
Hmm.
we've got news for them. They're 100% right. And I'm not sure what sort of delusion the other 30% are living in that it isn't. I mean, this thing is an absurdity. And the fact is, Dean, when I started this group 15 years ago, I was just pissed off at President Obama for, sucking up to a bunch of rich people by extending their tax cuts, which were unnecessary. I didn't have any idea the mess this thing was. That just one thing annoyed me. Then I started, you climb into it and climb into it. Boy, it will make your head explode. And now we're in a situation where we've got an administration. They rewrote the entire federal tax code in 2017, Dean, the Trump administration and Republicans. It was a party line vote. Okay.
Hmm.
Only Republicans passed this thing. 2017. In 2018, for the first time in American history, billionaires paid a lower effective tax rate than every single other group of people in the country. Then Democrats took over. They didn't do much to it. They added some IRS enforcement and they tried to do a global corporate tax rate. Both of those things have now been chipped away at and are essentially gone. And now Trump wants to extend the bad parts of his tax code and put a bunch of even worse stuff on top of it.
I'm chatting with Erica Payne, the founder and president of Patriotic Millionaires. On your website, you talk about an issue that everybody who's not uber wealthy talks about now. They might even talk about, but in a different light, that the power of big money in politics, how it is grotesque now. It is nauseating. It is angering to people. And I think Elon Musk is the poster child for that now. And Erica's got a mug that says tax the rich. She's drinking from right now. People can't see
I
it
love
here.
I love this mug. You can find them on our website. We have lots of merch, Dean.
Tax the rich. I like that very much. So, does there any ideas? We can't, on a federal level, we're not going to change anything with big money in politics. Not going to happen now. Do you have any hope on the state level that certain things can be done? Or do you talk more about aspirationally if the Democrats get control of Congress again and enough Democrats are on the right side that we do something to address big money in politics?
So let me answer that in a little bit of a different way. I want to just say I am so excited and see so much opportunity in this total shit show that we're sitting in right now.
Right.
Surprisingly enough, because let me tell you, it's almost like the Democratic Party needed to go to AA, and step number one is admit you have a problem. And, for all of these years, as the Democratic Party has been complicit in the rigging of the economy,
Hmm.
from Bill Clinton passing NAFTA and Wall Street deregulation, forward to no bankers going to jail, the Democratic Party has a problem because they have been sucked into the big money virus as well. And they thought they could ride this out. And so finally, they have realized number one, they can't ride it out. Number two, the country is on the brink. And so I actually see in this opportunity, in this moment right here, a fantastic opportunity to force Democrats to have a value system and to talk about economics. Okay. Because there is one thing and one thing only that is going to get this country out of this mess over the long term. And that is restructuring the basic economic framework of this country so that it naturally produces the results we need for a stable and rich country. Our members want to be rich people in a rich country. These
Right.
are not bleeding heart liberals, okay? And the way we have structured this, there are two main things: the wage floor and the tax system. The wage floor is too low, the tax system is an absurdity. We need to fix those two things. To date, enough Democrats have been unwilling to do that, that of course they can't beat the big money in politics because they're trying to talk to people and the people don't believe them. You know,
Hmm.
the best way to beat big money in politics is to have people understand that you stand for something and let them carry the message for you. Of course, big money is a problem, but the capitulation of Democrats to big money is the bigger problem. And we can fix that.
Well, that's interesting, and that is a values decision for each candidate. And internally in the Democratic Party, they might have to do something. But in the general elections, uh, there are people raising billions of dollars, millions in a normal campaign, like a few $1 million from the wealthy. For president's different. That's an exception type of race. But what Elon Musk has done, like right now in the Wisconsin Supreme Court race, he's just throwing millions of dollars at that one seat, like the Gilded Age, like buying a judge. He's doing the same thing, and he's going to buy this judge if the judge were to win, and they're going to rule for everything he wants, and he'll follow that playbook all over. And I think we really need, after the Gilded Age was a progressive era, and the idea of reforms that even Republicans, Teddy Roosevelt, were on board with, like reforms to give the power back to people. And then the New Deal, we did even more. That's what we need. But we don't have enough Democrats within the caucus. We don't have control right now. But even if we won by 1 or 2 seats, you're going to lose some Democrats who aren't on board with that. We saw it with Manchin and Sinema,
Well, and let's also point out that Manchin and Sinema are no longer
right?
in
Thankfully.
office. Okay. As are some other folks who didn't lean into some. John Tester. I think, I multiple conversations with Senator Tester about leaning into wages and taxes and the basic structure of the economy. And, it fell on deaf ears. Now he's gone. So look, this is an evolution. And that's why I see such an opportunity in this moment is this is about money, Dean. Okay. Elon
Certainly.
Musk might want to make it about DEI and, yada, 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 and trans people, trying to live their lives and whatever. This is about money and it's only about money. And until Democrats start getting with it and being on the right side of the money question, they are going to keep on losing because people can see through the lie. So the best thing that Democrats could do right now, if they actually want to win, is to embrace a new structure for this economy and go to talk to their potential constituents about what that would look like. And Patriotic Millionaires have an economic framework that will build a sustainable democratic capitalist economy for the long term. So we are out there
Interesting.
pitching them hard on that. It's a three-part solution to all that ails us, and it would be a permanent fix that would ensure we have reasonable distribution of the benefits of the economy across our population so that we would not have the levels of inequality that we have right now, because those levels of inequality, by definition, when inequality hits a certain point, you become vulnerable to an authoritarian takeover. This has been a strategy that the right donors have put in place since Barry Goldwater in the 1964 election. Okay, this has been decades in the making. Institutions, think tanks, legal advocacy groups, they have moved the entire political structure. But behind it, their reason for their investment was to dismantle the regulatory state and eliminate their tax burden.
Hmm.
Okay. So Democrats need to jump on board with our economic framework that we're calling America 250, because this country is about to turn 250 years old, Dean. You know, we've had a
Yep.
great run. We want to have another great run. And in 2 years, we'll have our birthday. So, how do you structure in the face of AI, automation, globalization, all of this stuff? How do you actually structure an economy that is long-term stable and conducive to shared decision making. That's the that's the piece in front of us.
So when you look right now at our economy with income concentration at levels very close to 1929, and you have this, it's almost a reverse house of cards where the bottom is very small. The bottom of the pyramid where all the money is, about 30%, depending if you talk to Bernie Sanders, is even higher on different levels. A Fed study I saw, 60% of Americans can't afford $1,000 unexpected expense.
Yeah.
40% can't even afford $400. We are ripe for a collapse. Like if we hit a hard recession and they're gutting government programs like they're doing and they're laying people off, and then you add tariffs, which is a massive tax on top of it, it's the recipe for really economic calamity. Like something really bad seems to be on the horizon, and consumer sentiment is back up. People are feeling very unnerved. They're not sure what's happening. What are you seeing? What's your take?
Well, so number one, I think people feel unnerved, but let's be real clear about this. Poor folks in this country have been feeling unnerved for a really, really long time, ever since Bill Clinton passed NAFTA and ripped their legs out from under them and didn't do anything to fix it. All right. So if you look at a map of where MAGA is strongest and where NAFTA decimated communities, that is a direct overlay.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. So that's what happens. So the anxiety that people are feeling, I think a lot of wealthy people are feeling anxiety right now. A bunch of poor folks I know have been feeling anxiety for a long time, regardless of which political party
Hmm.
is in charge. Here's the thing. The cost of living for a single adult with no children in the United States, the median cost, meaning half places are higher, half are lower, is around $22 an hour. There's a tool called the MIT Living Wage Calculator, which you can find online. You can type in any state, any county, any city. It'll tell you how much it costs to live there and break it down by how much you have for food, rent, etc. Okay. Across the nation, you basically need 40 grand a year to be able to make your life work on any level. And keep in
Okay.
mind, this leaves you 85 bucks for food for a week. So you go spend, $12 a day on food. So this ain't high living. Okay. This is the bottom of the barrel. That requires $22 an hour. Okay. We have a minimum wage right now on the federal level that is $7.25 an hour. 42% of people in the United States make less than the median cost of living for a single adult with no children. 70% of people in the country make less than the median cost of living for a single adult with one child. So we basically have 70 to 80% of our population that simply on no level can make their lives work. And then we've got rich people building their own rockets to fly into space. That's the problem. No, you say it's an upside down house of cards. I think of it as a game of Jenga, the wooden block game. And
Right.
all we've been doing for decades is pulling that money out of the bottom, pulling those logs out of the middle, and loading them on the top. Of course, the whole thing is in the process of collapsing. What else did we think was going to happen? This is not a surprise.
Do you see it? You say collapsing. Erica, do you really see potential for economic collapse that worse than the Great Recession, depending how things go in the next few years?
I think that we are watching a societal collapse that is based on the fact that we have an economic structure that leads definitionally to the downturn of our society. When you've got this percentage of people who can't make it work, and then you have a small, super rich group of people who knows how to exploit those vulnerabilities, I mean, you can do any psychological study you want. When people feel secure themselves economically, psychologically within their family structure, they are infinitely more open to different things in other human beings, whether they're different colors, different sexual orientations, different
Hmm.
cultural backgrounds, any of that. So we've got people who are just walking around with an enormous level of economic anxiety just as a baseline. And then you throw a bunch of billionaires in there who want to manipulate people around all of the things that are different than them. And so we're in the middle of societal collapse. Dean, 2.5 million people in America are addicted to opioids. Deaths of despair, deaths due to alcohol, suicide, and drugs are at the highest level they have ever been. And for the first time in American history, life expectancy is going down for segments of our population. And so the answer is not, the question is not whether or not we are in collapse, it's what are we going to do about it. And the thing to do about it is to determine how to build an economy that would make this thing actually work. Get the money part straight. Here's the Patriotic Millionaires economic solution. Number one, raise the minimum wage, the wage floor, to the actual cost of living for a single adult with no children. So that if you work 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, you are guaranteed that you can provide yourself a minimal level of success, of
Right.
stability. Number two, stop taxing people into poverty. Right now, the federal government taxes people when they start making around 15, 16,000 bucks a year. Why are we taxing people into poverty? Patriotic millionaires don't think anybody should pay taxes until they can take care of themselves. So raise that standard deduction to $42,000 a year and then treat all the money you got in the system equally. Get rid of the preferential treatment for capital gains, for inherited income. If your parents leave you money, you need to pay on that money like it is income. Okay. We don't get to get free money. And so those basic changes would get us towards a structure where poor people had enough time to get involved in decision making because they don't have to work three jobs to make their ends meet.
Right.
We've got a high level of consumer demand, higher than now, and we've got a 70% consumer demand um, economy. And so this will actually make business people richer. Then we increase substantially the taxes on people who make more than $1 million a year or who are worth more than $5 million a year. And we take all that money, which has been basically it's a distortion in the market, Dean. Okay. The fact that Elon Musk is that rich is a distortion in the market. That's not an appropriate structure. If you see that kind of distortion, you should know you have a problem. So we
Right.
need to take a tremendous amount of that, of those assets and reinvest them in the population.
Well, Erica, I'd love to have you on more to talk about this and some of the other issues. I'm really intrigued by, the approach by Patriotic Millionaires. If people want to go to the website to find out more information, where do they go?
Go to patrioticmillionaires.org. And Dean, I also want to flag for you that
Hmm.
on April 7th,
Hmm.
from 9 to 12, and you can see this on our website, we are hosting a town hall, an expert town hall called How to Beat the Oligarchs. So that will
Really?
be live streamed. We are going to talk about what the oligarchy is, the kind of the natural tension between capitalism and democracy and how to navigate those well, some of the tools that the right has used to take such control right now, and then ultimately end on what I said in the beginning. We have a fantastic opportunity in front of us to get through this nonsense and to the other side. So let's take that opportunity. This conference is going to help orient everybody in the right story and in the right solution. So at patrioticmillionaires.org, go there. We will have the live stream there on April 7th, Monday, April 7th from 9 to 12.
That's great. And, maybe in the time after that, we can have you come back on and talk about what were the takeaways, what was learned, what can be applied. But I think that's a remarkable thing you're doing.
I
So,
love that.
all right, Erica, thanks so much for being on, my friend. I appreciate it. Nice chatting with you.
Absolutely. Nice to chat with you. Thank you so much, Dean.
Sure.